times when I was a kid, but it was always a store-bought pizza. We never had Pizza Hut or Domino's. We had other private pizza places, never had those. But at this place, they have a large barbecue pit in the ground. And anytime I wanted barbecue, they'd make it. I If I wanted pizza, I just had to tell them and they'd go buy it. If I wanted Burger King or McDonald's, they'd go get it or they'd go get it and give it to me. Just like it's a treat. Anything I want at any time. If I'm going to stay there for 8 hours during the day, they'll feed me cereal or whatever in the morning. But for lunch, why don't you just have some potato chips if you want them? Have a burger. We'll have pizza for supper. Anything that I wanted was right there. At my house, my parents' house, we had a 26-inch console TV. I say this now in conferences, and kids look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. We had a TV, it was 26 inches, and it fit in a giant wooden box. And it was like 3 feet deep by 3.5 feet tall and like 2.5 feet wide. And it's made of wood, and my mother had me polish it every Saturday. And then when you turned it on, it kind of crackled and turned gray and then turned green. And eventually you saw the picture. When you turned it off, it would crackle and turn green. And you could stick your hand about a foot away from it and feel static electricity against your hand. And it would like crack. Sometimes it would hurt. Most of the time, it was just something you would feel. And I grew up with that. That was my TV. And then in mine and my brother's room, we had a black and white 13-inch TV. And as much as I hated the black and white TV when I was a kid, I wish I could get one now. They were so cool. So I'm attending this place, and they tell me I actually confessed to one of them what happened to me when I was 11. And they told me that what happened to me was atrocious. It should have never happened to anybody. But now I can get my power back. Another lie of Satan. We don't have any power. But I can get my power back, and I can do that anytime I want. Anybody that I want to have sex with, I can do it. Just point to the person I want to have sex with, or go over and take them by the hand and lead them back into a back bedroom. No one else can do that to me. If I don't want to do it, I can say no, and I don't have to do it. And then they said, here, let me show you some magazines. And the magazines had adults in it in different stages of undress or completely nude. And I looked at those, and then they showed me still photos of kids my age. Some of them a little younger, some of them a little older, but kids. And then they showed me magazines with nude kids in it. And then they showed me, like, at my house, you could watch a G-rated movie, so a lot of Disney, or a PG-rated movie if it had been vetted by my dad first. But over there, they had R-rated movies. I didn't know that existed. Or an X-rated movie. I certainly didn't know that existed. Or a triple X-rated movie. And then they showed me triple X-rated movies that had kids in it my age. Now, imagine, if you will, you go to the hero back when I was growing up was John Wayne. So let's say you went to a theater to watch a John Wayne movie, and John Wayne is sitting next to you in the theater. That blows your mind. I mean, like, you don't even know John Wayne, but here he is sitting right next to you enjoying a movie. I'm at their house. They have this reel-to-reel projector, and they show me a triple X-rated movie with children in it that are all having sex. And those same children that are in that movie are sitting all around me on the couch and on the floor. So I'm in the same room as the people that are movie stars that are having sex on screen. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. I'm friends with these people. They asked me if I wanted to be in these kind of movies, and they said I would be famous. And they showed me letters that were written in from all over the world. and it would be like a letter from Japan, and the address is in Japanese. Then they have another address that's in English. And then you read the letter, and the paper here in America, we have, if you're in the, say, fifth or sixth grade and older, then you use notebook paper that's tall with thin lines for your school. But if you're in first through third or fourth grade, you use notebook paper that's wide and has really thick lines. And so it would be on that kind of paper, sometimes written in crayon or magic marker, and words are misspelled. Now, it never occurred to me when I was a kid that that was really an adult or a pedophile writing that. We all thought it was children writing it. And they would list, all of us have a name that's not our real name on the screen. So it would show our picture and my name was Tommy, or another girl and her name was Mosquito Bites. There's another girl named Little Bit. So they have these names next to the picture so that you can write in and say, I want to see Tommy with a Little Bit doing these sex acts. And people, they let me read some of those letters. So, and they're coming from all over the world. It was like, we got like letters from France and England and Germany, and Japan. And, I'm thinking that uh, children from all over the world are seeing these kids. These kids are famous. So they told me that if I wanted to learn how to do this, I would have to go to this house. I knew where the house was. I knew the girls there. They had an 8-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And I had to take a letter there and hand it over to somebody. And they read it, pass it along to the sisters, and they have a brother. And everybody read it. And then it turned out that I was going to learn how to have sex with the 8-year-old first. I was 12. She taught me everything she knew for like 3 weeks. And then I went with the 11-year-old, and I was with her for about 2 weeks. And then I graduated to the 14-year-old, and the 14-year-old had me for about a week. And what happened when I was with the 11-year-old, her mom, when she got home from work, she would come in the back door, and the back door opened up, and I knew that's her mom. And I am terrified. I am laying naked in the bed with her 11-year-old daughter. She's teaching me how to do stuff. And I have met this woman and I've talked to her a couple of times in passing, but I'm thinking she's either going to kill me herself, or she's gonna, we live 2 blocks away. She's either gonna call my dad, or she's gonna go and tell my dad, and my dad will kill me. And I'm just thinking, this is the last day of my life. I hope this experience was great, because it's not gonna be anymore. And she knocks on the door, and I'm just scared to death. I'm sure I'm pale as a ghost, and I'm starting to sweat. And her daughter says, "Come in." And I'm thinking, why? Why? Do you want me to die? I don't say anything. I'm just laying there. And her mom opens the door, says like hi to me in a friendly way, and asks, "How's he doing?" And she's like, "He's great. He learned a lot with the younger girl, and he knows what he's doing, and just be like maybe another week, and then he'll advance to the my older sister." And she's like, "Okay." She goes, "Do you want to stay for supper?" I said, "You'll have to call my dad and ask him." She's like, "Okay." So she goes there and she picks up the phone and calls my dad. I'm just expecting her to say, "By the way, your son's having sex with my 11-year-old daughter." But she was like, can your son stay for supper?" He's like, "Yeah, send him home after that." She goes, "Well, we're probably not going to do it till about 7 p.m. Is that okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's fine. That's fine." So just whenever he's done, send him home. So she hangs up. She comes back. She goes, "Yeah, okay, you're staying." And she closes the door and she tells me to have fun. And I'm just like blown away by this. I talked to my coven that I didn't know was a coven. I talked to them and they said that She's been in child pornography since she was 3 years old. She had multiple abortions, and then she started having children, and she's got 4 children. And ever since, she has 3 daughters and 1 son, and all of her children were in child pornography from the age of 3 till now, and they're still in it. So, I was like, oh, I said, I really thought I was going to be in trouble when you knocked on the door. She's like, oh, no, 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 it's fine. We've been doing this game for a long time. And so, I learned from them, and then I started performing on camera. It would take sometimes still photos of me, but normally we did videos. And we made still photos, which usually sold in a pack of 100. And they charged a pretty penny for those, but you got 100 photos. So they tried to make it seem worth your while. We also made loops, which is a 7-minute videotape, or we made vids, which are 30 minutes or less, or we made a movie, which is about an hour and a half, but could be as big as 2 hours, or we made compilation tapes, and a compilation tape is like only oral sex, but you get 4 hours of it. So it's all the different movies compiled into one, or whatever type of sex is what you want, times between 2 and 4 hours. And we get to see the finished product of what we made. And, all the kids that I'm doing with is right around me. Now, keep in mind that we didn't just do it in my hometown. We also did it in neighboring towns around us. And I would meet a lot of times girls and boys that I don't know where they're from. They just would come there. I didn't realize certain things I didn't realize. I didn't realize that everybody that's filming us and that's helping us do these things and that are buying all of our material are all pedophiles. I didn't know the term pedophile back then. I didn't know what that was. If you'd have said these people are pedophiles, I wouldn't have known what that meant. I didn't know that it was adults buying it. It would have made sense because these things were really expensive, and most children could not have, afforded $3,000 for a movie. I didn't realize that some of the people were not there by their choice. And I didn't realize that some of the people that we met from out of town were being trafficked. That's another phrase I would not have known. If you'd have said these people were being trafficked, I wouldn't have known what that meant. Does that mean they drove here? I don't know. I don't know what trafficked means. They didn't even talk about, people got arrested for trafficking and drugs. Trafficking wasn't a word that was used on the news very often. It's not something that I would have known what it meant. There was a girl at one of the shoots that we did, and she was supposed to be 8 or 9 years old, but she looks like she was maybe 3 or 4 years old. She's a little tiny thing, and she's so thin you can see her ribs. And it was time for lunch, so I was given a sandwich and a bag of chips and a soda, and she's not eating, and she's looking at my food like she really wants it. And so I offered her some chips, and they told me not to do that, not to feed her. She's being punished. She can't eat until she performs well for a day. So, I said, okay. And then I asked her, like, there was no adults near me. I said, do you know where the bathroom is? And she said, yes. I said, have you been in a while? She said, no. I said, why don't you go to the bathroom? There's a window in there that's always open, and there's a screen in it that's broken. If you go in there, I'll go out to the car to get some more supplies, but I'll feed you a sandwich through the window. You're going to have to swallow it really fast, but I think we can get away with it. So I told one of my people, hey, did you want me to go outside and get some more of the film. He goes, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Go ahead and do that. So, and I knew we had a lot of food in the car. So I went outside. We had like bologna sandwiches and peanut butter sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly. I knew not to hand her peanut butter and jelly because her breath would smell like peanut butter. But I handed her a bologna sandwich through the screen. She basically shoved the whole thing in her mouth and swallowed it. And then she said she was still hungry. So I gave her another one. And then I went inside with the stuff that I said I was going to get. And I told them that I had a hard time finding some of the stuff, which was true. I did have a hard time finding it. So it excused me from being out in the car for a while. She left from the bathroom, and now she's got kind of a bloated stomach. And I'm worried that we're going to get in trouble, but nobody ever said anything as far as I know. But there'd be times we'd see girls that we'd never see again. You know, they'd come in, they'd shoot film with us. They're always friendly, but, you know, it's like, what town are you from? I don't know. Where'd you used to live? I don't know. You know, and we would get answers like that. I was in a town, it was about 20 miles from my town, and there's a building there that's always boarded up and it's locked up. We went in through the back door and we're going to be shooting a bunch of videos that day, but I'm not being in any of them. I'm just a gopher. We have a room there that has lighting equipment, sound equipment, cameras, reel to reel film, um, regular cameras like still photo cameras, and they keep sending me in there to get stuff. As I'm going in and out, there's also a cot in there, and there's a little black girl laying naked on the cot. And when I went in there the first time, I saw her. I've never seen her before, and I said hello to her. And she smiled and she spoke to me in a language I didn't know. Now, my mom was Hispanic, and I know it wasn't Spanish, and of course it wasn't English. I didn't know what language it was. And she said a couple of things to me, and I smiled and nodded, but I have no idea what she's saying. Then there became a line of men that went from the back door all the way to that door. And the line of men has probably 30 to 40 men in it. And they're going in one after another having sex with this little black girl. Then I keep going back and forth to get, you know, whatever these people are sending me in there for. And these men just keep sleeping with her and keep sleeping with her and keep sleeping with her. And then this woman goes in there when I'm getting stuff and she puts a tourniquet on her arm and gives her a shot into her vein. I don't know about people doing stuff like that. So I'm thinking she's getting medicine or something. She leaves. And then I go in there a few more times, and this girl's eyes roll into the back of her head. She drops down to the bed. She drools out of her mouth. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, something might be happening here. So I went back and I told the adults, hey, this is going on. So they came down, they stopped the men from going in there. At this point, there's about 7 men left. She goes in there and she checks the girl out and she says she died. She's gone. And then the first man said, does that mean we can't sleep with her? That mean we can't have sex with her? No, you can keep going in there and doing that. So the 7 more men go in there and sleep with her after she's died. Then we had a police car show up outside. And I ran and got adults again. And I was like, I don't know what this means, but we just had a cop car show up. And they're like, okay. So they went back and they let the cop inside. He's in full uniform and he comes down to that room and he grabs the girl, throws her on the floor. There's like this small carpet on the floor, like a little throw rug. And he wraps her up in that, throws her over his shoulder, and he says, I'll take care of it. And he walks out the door. My parents got our town newspaper came out once a week. And then they also got, there's 2 cities near us, about 60 miles in either direction. And my parents had subscriptions to those newspapers. So for almost the rest of the summer, I kept looking in the newspaper for a young girl that was found dead somewhere. And I never found that. And back where we lived in the Everglades. So they could have fed her to an alligator, I guess. Or we also had, I think, a hog farm nearby. So they could have fed her to the hog farms, to the hogs. But, I never found any evidence of a dead girl being found. And at some point, while all this is going on, this older kid ran up to me one day and he said, you're in a satanic coven, right? And he burst out laughing and took off running. And I laughed it off. I mean, I've seen the creepy movies. When you see a creepy movie, the creepy music plays when the bad guy's on the screen. Or, I don't know if did you guys ever watch the Adam West Batman show in the 1960s?
Yeah, with kapow, bish, bash.
Right. Yes. Okay. So when the Riddler, the Joker, the Catwoman, the Penguin, when they're on the screen is tilted to the side because they're crooked, they're dishonest. When Batman is on the screen with Robin, the screen is upright because Batman is upright and just and truthful. So I'm seeing every once in a while somebody at a sleepover in a dark robe, a black robe. I would ask them what that was, and they would get up and walk away. I'm thinking, Satan is supposed to be the bad guy, but my parents are the no police. That the Bible is a bunch of things you're not allowed to do. And the whole Bible is thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And then my parents, hey, there's a new movie coming out Friday. Can I see it? No. The Moody Blues are coming to town. Can I go? No. Dad, can I? No. Dad, no. Eventually you just look at my dad. No. But over there, we're going to go see this movie on Saturday. And then when that's over, we're going to go see the Moody Blues at night. Anything I wanted to do, I could do. Anything that I wanted to do, I needed not ask my parents. I just needed to go over there and ask them. My Baptist church taught me that Jesus defeated Satan on the cross 2,000 years ago. So Satan's no longer a threat to anybody. And that Satan is afraid of the Baptist church. Now, it's odd that Satan is afraid of the Baptist church, but he attacked God on God's own turf. And then St. Michael opened up a can of whoop ass and kicked Satan out of heaven. If he's brave enough to attack God in God's home, don't you think he would be brave enough to attack the Baptist church? But we were taught the opposite of that. So if Satan is afraid of the Baptist church and Satan is no threat to us, Satan is giving me everything I want because he wants to be my friend. He's afraid of me. I'm 12 years old. This is my mentality. But I don't know that this is truly a satanic coven. So I went to an adult member that I trusted and I said, hey, you're going to laugh. I heard this was a satanic coven. Crazy, right? And I expected him to, slap me on the back and tell me to go play. Tousle my hair and say, that's ridiculous. But he didn't say any of that. He said, it is. And my heart sunk into my stomach. I was like, am I a member? No. Would you like to be? And now this is the point of realization because I'm addicted to porn. I love porn. And I love the porn you can buy at the gas station, which is okay if you can't get anything else. But the porn that I watch there, it stars my friends and me. You got to be 18 years old to buy porn. I like smoking cigars on occasion and a pipe. It was just fun. You got to be 19 to buy tobacco. I'm still 12. And I drink booze. My favorite drink is a screwdriver because it looks like orange juice, but you can get drunk on it. You gotta be 21 to buy booze. I'm still 12. I take illegal drugs almost every day, and I get them here for free. If I quit, I'm going to have to buy them someplace else. I don't even know where to buy them. And I'm having sex almost every day, but definitely on the weekends. And I'm starring in these movies. And if I leave, I'm going to lose all my privileges that I love to do. Everything that I love is going to be gone. And I'm not going to be able to do this stuff anymore. What do I have to do to join? And he told me there are 13 steps involved to becoming a Satanist. And I had done almost all of them already. All I had left to do was to slice my left thumb, bleed onto a document, and sign it in 3 places. The blood of Jesus washes away all sin, but not mine. And I signed my name to it. Jesus died for everyone, but not me. And I signed my name to it. And on the final page of a 5-page document, I agreed to sell my soul to the devil. Since we're on this point right now, do you think it's possible to sell your soul to the devil?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I was raised Catholic, and that's what I was taught.
That it's possible to sell your soul to the devil? When I do my conferences, I usually have an assistant that sits next to me because I ask questions of the audience and then they tell me how many people raise their hand or say yes or no. So when somebody's sitting next to me, I ask them what kind of car they own. And whatever they tell me, I then ask the audience, who here can legally sell me this person's car? Nobody raises their hand. And so I ask, why not? And they say, because it doesn't belong to us. Right. That's the same reason you can't sell your soul. You may have heard that Jesus died for you. Jesus paid the ultimate price for your soul. You don't own it. You can't loan it. You can't lease it. And you certainly cannot sell it. You may have heard that Satan is a liar. I am here to confirm. If Satan says good morning, get a second opinion. But I was 13 years old when I signed this document. And if you ask any 13-year-old, they know the answer to everything, and you know nothing. And I knew beyond a reasonable doubt that I was selling my soul to the devil, that I could really legally do it. And I did. I signed the document in my own blood. Then we have a ceremony where I'm dressed in a white robe. It signifies you're losing your innocence. And I get baptized in a giant vat. It's shaped like a demon's head, and it's full submersion, and it's filled with human blood, pig's blood, and human urine. I come up out of that, I go into another room and I take a shower. And I come out wearing a black robe with the cowl raised, and it shows that I've been baptized into a world of darkness. I sit in a chair and I'm handed a wheel about this big with a crucifix in it. You spin the crucifix upside down, signifying human sacrifice. I put my hands on Jesus' arms and they read the document I signed the night before. Then I hold up my thumb to show them it was my thumb that I sliced open. And then I break the arms downward, denouncing Christ. The image you're left with looks like a peace sign. And then they say that this document will be forever entwined with that in a vault, and that you now have a giant party celebrating that you're now a Satanist. And they handed me the robe that I came out in was a black robe with an inverted red pentagram. But the robe I wanted was the red robe with a black inverted pentagram. The red robe, the black robe is a basic member. The white robe is an initiate, and the red robe is a mage, M-A-G-E. It's the official magic practitioner of this coven. And we had a party afterwards. And yes, you are celebrating that you're now a Satanist, but the reality of the party is that you're celebrating that one day you're going to die and go to hell. And I wasn't positive that hell was real. I wasn't positive that God really existed. And I really wasn't positive that Satan was real. I was just having a good time. I can smoke, drink, have sex, take drugs, be in films. I can do anything I want. As long as I don't tell my dad any of this stuff, I'm golden. I can do whatever I want, which is the coolest thing for me. So at 14 years old, I had this man came to me and he said, all right, we're going to have a sex orgy with a 19-year-old girl and all the male members between 12 and 15. I've been having sex for, a couple of years. So what? And he says, and the reason for it is so that she gets pregnant and then we do an abortion. I was like, cool. And then I went home to look up the word abortion meant because I had no idea. The last time I heard the word, my mom and dad were talking to each other and they whispered it. So I thought, this got to be a dirty word. And it turns out it is. It's the dirtiest word there is. But I couldn't look it up. I had a Webster's dictionary that's about a foot thick, and the word abortion wasn't in it. So I went to the library, still couldn't find it, but they had two books that both were about abortion. But both books are about an inch and a half thick. I survived at high school with cliff notes. So it's like you're going to read, instead of reading a 500-page book, you're going to read the 20 pages in these cliff notes. And I am not reading an inch and a half just to get the definition to one word. So I went back to my coven and I said, I heard I'm going to be committing an abortion in like 9 months. I don't know what that means. And they said, oh, you're killing a baby in the womb. I was like, is that legal? Oh, yeah. In the womb, legal. Out of the womb, murder. So they gave me a scalpel. They said I could use a knife. That'd be fine. And that they wanted me to practice on a ball of Play-Doh or an apple or an orange. But then after practicing on that for about 6 weeks, and it seemed easy, somebody told me it's not a real baby. It's just like a clump of cells or some tissue. It's no big deal. All you have to do is get blood on your hands. You're going to start a hex, go over, get blood on your hands, go back and complete the hex, and you'll be fine. It's no big deal. You're not murdering a baby. Get that out of your head. So when the event occurred, there's 13 high priests and priestesses surrounding this woman that's on like a birthing bed or a birthing table. Her legs are up in stirrups. There's a bunch of men at the far end of the room that are praying and chanting to Satan to keep them safe. And there's a bunch of women nude on the floor on their knees, chanting our bodies ourselves and swaying back and forth. Then I'm standing in the middle with the abortion doctor and an abortion nurse, and I'm waiting for this lump of cells or some tissue to be scraped out. And they talked about they would suck it up with a vacuum cleaner hose. I was like, all right, whatever happens, happens. But it turns out it's a late-term abortion. The baby is fully developed, and they deliver it breech. So the entire body comes out except the head. I don't know how graphic you want this to get because it's a late-term abortion. I don't know if you even know how that takes place.
Just keep going.
Do you want me to describe it?
Well, I think we've got to understand what happened here.
Okay. So In a late term abortion, they deliver the body but not the head. Then they take a sharp pair of scissors and they jam it up into the base of the skull where the neck meets the skull. It's a very soft place. They jam the scissors up there and then they open them. So it opens up the spot so it's wider. Then they take that vacuum tube and they stick it into that hole and they suck out the baby's brains, which causes its skull to collapse in on itself and the baby dies. Then
Ah,
they took this device that looks like a pair of tongs with teeth and they ripped the baby apart, throwing the body parts out to the women on the floor who cannibalize the baby parts, all the skin, the entrails, the everything that's not bones. They eat that. They rub the blood all over themselves, and they have a sex orgy. My body feels like all my blood drained away, and I just had pure adrenaline. My legs were shaking. I felt 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I felt like if you'd have given me a lake or a canal to walk across, I could have done it. I could do anything in this moment. I felt all powerful. However, I did realize when they delivered that baby that they lied to me. That's not a clump of cells. That's not some tissue. That's an actual baby. And if they'd have delivered it, it would have lived as long as somebody would have taken care of it. So I feel amazing. When I'm turning 18, I'm graduating from high school and I wanted to go join another satanic coven at college. But I knew we didn't have the internet back then. For you to find out where the next satanic coven was, it's not like they're going to advertise it in the town square. One of the few places that I knew they were advertised is if you went to an adult bookstore and bought a local swingers magazine, they would sometimes list satanic covens in the back of them. But I don't know if you've ever been to one of those places. They're skeezy. There's people sitting out in the parking lot masturbating in their car. He was like, I don't want to see that on my way to trying to find out where a satanic coven is. I don't want to, and I don't want to see anybody that I know. So I go to school, and my first day of school, the first day the school is open is a Wednesday. And when I went in on Wednesday, they had the student union. The student union was open. So it's all these political or fraternities or sororities advertising for what they want. They're trying to get students to join them. So, it's the whatever the fraternities and sororities are, student union. And then there's the satanic student union and the Wiccan student union. I'm like, oh, satanic coven right here. Okay. So I went to them a couple of times. And these are a bunch of kids away from home for the first time, no adult supervision. And they think that Satan is all about getting drunk, getting stoned, and having sex. I've been doing that since I was 12. I don't need a satanic coven for that. And these guys would have a party on a Saturday, and Sunday they would go to church. Not to split it up, not to do damage at it. It was just Saturday night was their club meeting, and Sunday was church. Then when they did their party, they would do like, okay, I'm going to guzzle this beer in one shot. Then I'm going to take the empty can and circle it around my head 3 times, and I'm going to throw it into a trash can. And if it lands there, I'm going to get a brand new truck tomorrow. It's like, that's not a magic spell. What are you doing? And so it was just fake. So I called my first coven and I said, hey, I read a book during the summer and it talked about a satanic coven that was out to rule the world. And they mentioned something about the Illuminati, which I don't know if that's real. And they mentioned a place called Bohemian Grove. Don't know if that's real either. And this coven was supposed to be gigantic. where can I find them? And so they said, here's a phone number. Call them, wait a little bit, give them your real name, because when you go, they're going to ask for your ID. Okay. So I called the number and waited a few days and got a phone call back. And they told me about a building. There's going to be this giant warehouse and a big party. I'm going to have to park about 2 miles away and bring my ID. And this is the coven that I've been talking about. So I went. Sure enough, I had to park 2 miles away and walk my way back. And I knocked on the door. This guy opens it. I tell him my name. He pulls out a clip.
Oh, looks like he'll be back in a second, folks. He's got a call, but his links are in the description, his YouTube channel, his Facebook, and this is a harrowing content warning, folks. If you are watching this, don't have any sensitive people in the room, because it is something else. All right, he's back.
All right. So the guy opens the door and I go inside. And it looks like it's a warehouse. It's bigger than a super Walmart. And there's about 10,000 people in there. And they've got tables set up with chips. And they've also got tables set up with actual sandwiches or with pizza and or burgers and sandwiches. And then there's other tables set up that have water and soda, another table that has like beer, another table that has wine, a table that has hard liquor, and then another table that has like weed and mushrooms or that has pills. And there's a table that has syringes or cocaine, and I'm thinking, okay, that's different, but I don't want any of that stuff. And there's all these people, there's couches and recliners and love seats and people just sitting around and talking. There's also a DJ there and a dance floor. In the back, there's 5 giant beds all pushed together and a bunch of people, men and women, having sex with each other on the beds. They invite me to do that, but this is like 1984. The AIDS epidemic is in full swing. There's no way I'm getting close to that with those beds. So as I'm walking around, and I notice there's some people in the back wearing nice clothes, they kind of look like they're in charge, but I don't really feel comfortable going up to them. And then when I was at a sleepover when I was 13, one night I got up at like 3 in the morning to go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, and I saw this guy walking through the house. He was wearing corpse paint on his face, had a tuxedo on with a top hat, and carrying a wand. He looked like a member of KISS wearing a tuxedo. And he sees me and he winks, and then he walks into the kitchen. I walk to the bathroom, do what I've got to do when I leave. I thought about going into the kitchen to ask him some questions, but I just whatever. The next day when I woke up, I said, "Hey, I saw this guy in the house last night. Who was that?" And they said, "Oh, you dreamed that. That never happened." Oh, okay. So I'll just store that in the back of my head somewhere, and one day I'll find out. So one day happened when I was 18. I'm at this party and I see a similar looking guy walk past. Now, not the same guy, but a similar look. And I grabbed the guy next to me and I said, "Who is that? What is that? How can I do that?" And he says, "Well, who was in control of your coven before you came here?" I said, "We had a huge coven, 110 to maybe 150 members at any given time. And we had 13 high priests and priestesses." He goes, "Oh, okay." We have 1.1 million members worldwide, and we're run by a CEO and a board of directors. And the people that are in charge of our official magic are called high wizards. I was like, how can I become a high wizard? I don't know. I know that you have to get Satan's attention, but I don't know how to do that. And I don't know anything beyond that. Well, I know that abortion gets Satan's attention. I know in my first coven, they said, if you give Satan what he wants, he'll give you what you want. And I knew he wanted abortion. So I thought, all right. So I started hanging out with the high wizards. I approached the guy that was there and I said, I would really like to do your job. I don't know everything that it entails, but I think it's super cool. And I heard that you do assisted abortions, and I've done them at my previous coven. So how about this? You pick me up the next time you go do one, and I'll set up your altar. And if you like the way I set it up, I can come to all of your abortions and I'll just set up your altar for you. And so yeah, it wasn't that long after that. That guy gives me a call, comes by my house and picks me up. And he has an entire entourage with him. And one guy carries in this huge, it's like a suitcase, but it opens up and it turns into an altar. And then all the stuff that's on the altar is also in the suitcase. And I set it up how I would set up my own altar. And when he came over to look at it, he was like, "Did a good job. Yeah, you don't have to do anything else. This is good." So he did that. And I started working with not just him, but a couple of other high wizards. Then, when I was almost going to turn 21, I got a notice in the mail that I was being called before the CEO and the board of directors. And I know that some people that do that are never seen or heard from again. So, being paranoid as I was, we had a 2-week cooling off period in Florida to buy a handgun. So I went in and purchased a Sig Sauer 9mm, and then I bought a gun belt, and it's a clip belt. It holds a bunch of clips. And I bought all the ammo I needed.